Welcome back everyone to episode 9 of the podcast. I hope you're all well, wherever you are. And I think we're just going to get straight into it today. I'm going to pass it over to Amaan, who's going to introduce today's episode and introduce obviously our special guest.
Yeah, so today we're joined by Mr.Webber. Would you like to say hi?
Hey everyone.
And we're just going to talk a bit about Duke of Edinburgh, because I think me and Brad have both done the silver and I've done the bronze as well. We're just going to give you what we think of the trip and a bit of advice going forward. So just
I suppose
get
we'll
straight
start
into it.
with like why we wanted to do it.
Yeah, so what was your reason behind doing the silver?
Mine was, it was part of the extra studies, like extracurricular activities. And I don't know, it just, I've heard a lot of things about DofE obviously, and it just appealed to me really, and it's something that was good for my uni applications.
Uni applications,
well.
yeah.
So yeah, that was my really incentive. But I know you did bronze as well, so
yeah. So obviously doing the bronze is like silver's always like the next step forward, and because our school offered us that opportunity, I was just like, I might as well take it. So I think it was quite good going forward, and it was another challenge and something to look forward to.
Yeah, so I suppose for the people who don't know about the DofE, the structure is basically you have to do 4 different sections. One's an expedition, which for our expedition we did a practice one in Amaan, and then we went to Nepal, which was an amazing experience, and we'll get onto that later on. But then you've got to also do a service, which is it's a certain amount of time, and you just got to do a help out activity. Then you've got to do a skill, which obviously involves learning a new skill, practicing a skill that you're already good at, and then you finally got to do a physical activity, which you can do like sport, you can do like exercise. It's just that.
And I think one important thing to say is that when you are picking one of those activities, pick one that you think you can do like in this period of time, but also one you enjoy, because I think sometimes people just pick one for the sake of picking one, but then they're like, oh, this is boring. So if you pick one you enjoy, or something you want to try do.
I think that people don't realise how long, because when you say it like 26 weeks, it doesn't sound too long, but that's like 3 months.
It is a long time, yeah.
So you got to have something that you're doing regularly, and something, obviously it's tougher now with the pandemic, so you got to make sure you're picking something that you can do like while we're living in the times we are at the moment.
Yeah.
So, but I think we'll go on to talk about the expedition now, and we'll get Sarah involved, because obviously you came with us. So
it's not a trip I'm going to forget easily.
So we'll just go on straight to talk about Nepal, I think. That was, so where do we want to start with that, I suppose?
Where can we start? Obviously we started off with the rumours about the corona and stuff like that. That all started just before we went on the trip.
Yeah, I suppose. So what was your first initial, when did you find out you were coming out?
I think originally it was supposed to be someone else on the trip and not me. I think it was supposed to be Mr. Moriarty, but for whatever reason he ended up doing a different trip. So Miss Rayner approached me and said, oh, would you go? And I'd been to Nepal before to do a trek, and I absolutely loved it. I fell in love with the country. It's stunning. So I can't remember quite when I came on board. I think it was probably at the beginning of the academic year that we went. But I suppose, like you're saying, we went, when was it? Was it
February?
Late February, I think. And it was the week before half term. And obviously Corona, we knew about it in January and February, but it was one of those things where you didn't really know how much of a bigger deal it was, and is the news just hyping it up too much, and no flights had been affected or anything like where we were at the point. So it was, I know a lot of students dropped out, and it was actually mainly the year above you, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was mainly the year 13s.
Which was interesting because they almost dropped out straight away.
And I remember when we were doing it, how we were like, why are they dropping out? It's nothing. But obviously now that kind of has not lived to the best of what's happening, obviously. But I think that was also, because I remember that flight, it was the first time people started to wear masks.
Exactly, yeah.
You started to see more stuff about awareness, like social distancing. But it's a weird experience. I think there's a lot of, especially with our parents and obviously family, I think there's a lot of you have to stay safe and make sure you're doing the right things, because if you're going to a different country without them, I think that was the biggest thing for us anyway.
Yeah, I think also with Nepal as well, it's not as built up as Dubai is, the facilities and stuff like that, it's not as well organised as here. So I think there was always a bit of concern, if something does happen and we get stranded there, are we going to be in the best place? But Yeah, I think, like you said, I was a bit guilty of maybe sort of playing down the corona at the time and saying, look, you know, you still have lives to live. We should, if we have the opportunity to go, we should go because it's a life experience. And yes, in hindsight, the pandemic did turn out to be a lot more serious than we all believed at the time. But I don't regret going on that trip at all.
No,
I think
brilliant. Especially with what happened for the rest of that year, that was the highlight
That was
of
the
2020
highlight,
for like
yeah.
most people.
Yeah.
And I think whenever you look back at 2020 now, yes, you'll remember the pandemic, but you'll also remember the Nepal trip, which will be a good memory.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose we'll just. So obviously we got there. There's a bit of. I think it's an instant shock when we got there to see the different culture, the different way of life.
Yeah.
Obviously you were there before, you said, so
Yeah.
you've seen it, but for all the rest of us, we've never seen something like it before, so it's a big shock straight away for us, I think.
And I think it happens in the airport because you get to the airport and obviously it's quite small. You know, border patrol is quite basic, and then you get there. And I always remember coming out of the arrivals, and you get out to where all the taxis are, and there's this huge window at the end of the corridor, and there is everyone just waiting for, you know, friends or family, and they're all pressed up against the glass, and it's a really weird sort of like sensation. And obviously, you know, we had a minibus waiting for us and stuff, which was fine, but we arrived, it was dark, and we had to drive through the city to Kathmandu to get where we were staying. And yeah, like you said, like I've seen it all before, but I did wonder, like, if either of you two been to a country like that.
No,
I don't think I've seen something similar to what we saw in Nepal.
Yeah.
I think I've been to Pakistan, which was probably the closest I could get to a situation like that.
Yeah, for me it was an instant, like, not obviously it was a really cool experience, I think, personally, because it's one of the once in a lifetime opportunities that I'll probably never be able to do. I could, but I'd like never get to live that same experience that I did again. So yeah, it was worth it. And obviously we stayed. How many days? I think we did a night before we started, or maybe a day before we started.
Yeah, I think it was 2 nights, wasn't it? So
Yeah.
we arrived in the evening, and then I can't remember what we did for dinner the first night. I don't know if we had dinner
I think
in
we
the
just
hotel.
went to sleep probably.
Well,
Quite
yeah.
I don't know.
I don't
Yeah.
think we did much the first night.
No.
And then the second day we had our practice, didn't we? So you got to set up your tents and try out your equipment and stuff in the grounds of the hotel. And then you got to see the maps for the first time, didn't you? So
Yeah.
How was that when you got to actually see the maps?
It was an instant thing of like, we don't know these places. It's
Yeah.
not like there's a lot of I've only seen like UK maps before, really, and it's quite like built up. It's like names of towns that I recognise, that sort of thing. But instantly, I didn't have a clue where I was. Or
And I think when we looked at the maps, we saw a lot of mountains, which I think was the site we were just like, oh no. But then thinking more about it, it was like the views that you're going to get with mountains and stuff. So that was always an exciting point from that.
I suppose that sort of built it up, and it was real. It was happening that day. We were about to go off to.
I do have a funny memory about views. Actually, we'll have to come back to in a second. But I think after we did that, we went for a walk around Kathmandu, didn't we?
Yeah.
And I think for anyone who hasn't been there, it's like a maze of really narrow streets, like very like broken pavement, and you know you have traffic going both ways, scooters going everywhere, and people walking in all amongst it, and it's chaos, but it works, and I think it has a nice charm to it. But it must have been interesting for you guys.
It was, I think again, I was just amazed. That was literally what it was. Like, you didn't know when, like, to take a turn around the street. Even the guides were getting a bit lost, I think, at some point. So, yeah, it was a bit of a maze, but I think it was a cool experience. All the shops, obviously, that we got to visit after our expedition were very, very interesting, and obviously completely different each shop. So.
And I think even meeting the people there, the culture, and they were all really friendly people as well.
I actually remember you getting a challenge on the first day talking about shops.
Oh yes,
didn't you?
Yes, I remember that.
You could get the best bargain in the shops.
Yeah. Who?
I know Fahad got the worst one.
Yeah, I think Fahad definitely got the worst one.
He bought some gloves.
Oh, that was. Oh, how could we forget the famous ski gloves? Yeah, and then I remember you came back with a Yoda woolly hat, which was really funny.
I've still got that, and I'll still keep that. That'll be my mem. And so that was cool, especially the bargaining aspect of it. That's something obviously I'm never used to. I think that's quite in Asian culture. I think that bargaining sort of thing. So, yeah, I'm used to just going into like a supermarket, fixed price, check out, you're done.
Yeah.
But it was cool bargaining, and I mean.
What did you buy, Amaan?
What did I buy? I bought like this
I thought you
sweater
bought-
thing.
oh, you bought-
yeah,
oh,
I bought
yeah.
this sweater thing.
Yeah,
Me
I
and
do
Faris
remember.
got a good price for that, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, that did help you though, I suppose. It
Yeah,
kept you
I
warm.
took it on the expedition with me as well.
So it was nice. But yeah, so we'll just talk. We might as well go on to that now.
The
Yeah.
expedition
Start of it.
itself.
So
yeah.
we must have been about a 45-minute drive actually.
Yeah,
It's a
maybe
place
yeah,
where we
maybe even a
started.
bit more than that.
Yeah.
I do remember we had to make a quick emergency stop as well because
Someone needed the
someone's
bathroom. Someone needed
water
the
bottle
bathroom.
broke in the back of the
Oh,
car,
yeah. I remember
soaked
that.
loads of stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
And then we got to the start and we set off.
yeah,
And then you were closely behind us with Miss Verena and Malcolm, I think it was.
yeah. So we obviously you had your maps, everyone got sorted, got bags on and tightened up and
Yeah.
everything, and then yeah, we let you go off and we gave you sort of like a I don't know 20-30 metre lead or whatever, and then just sort of
Something I
like
was interested to know is like, what were you thinking when you were behind us? Obviously, you were seeing if we were going wrong. You knew if we were going wrong. You knew if we were going right. What were you? I suppose what were you thinking at the time?
do you know what? I wasn't really worried about that as much. I think I was enjoying being there so much. You know, I had my camera like ready at all times, and I decided I was going to try and video as much of it as possible and take photos and stuff. But I think there's not really that much to go wrong there. You had an established track that you
Yeah.
were following, and you know we had two guides with us plus Malcolm, who's you know ex-Navy, and you know he's done all this sort of for years and years. So no, I didn't really have any concerns. And also I think that the group of kids that we had were all like nice people, good personalities. We didn't have anyone who was likely to go and you know jump over a fence and try and chase a bunch of goats or something
I'm
like
not
that.
sure
So yeah, maybe bad,
Yeah,
but
maybe. I don't know.
but yeah, it was a good
yeah.
group of people.
And it was a long walk, I think. Or the first one felt a lot longer than it actually was, I think. I
Yeah.
don't know how. I think it's like 13, 14k maybe.
Yeah, I think it was
I'm
like
right.
it was roughly around
And it
that.
ended, I remember, with that uphill bit.
Yeah.
And the stairs,
Yeah.
remember?
That was the last
stairs.
day.
That was the second day because we
Yeah.
camped at the
Second
top,
day,
didn't
yeah.
we?
That was really cool. That
But I think like when you talk about distances and you say oh it's only 13k, you have to remember that that's not 13k flat.
Yeah.
That's 13k doing
Up and
this,
down, yeah.
and it's so the distance you actually cover is a lot less because you spend most of your time actually climbing. So yeah, the gains and drops in altitude was the big thing.
Yeah, I remember that first camp we saw, like, especially in the morning, I remember that.
Yeah.
The snow-capped mountains. I know you enjoyed taking the
Yeah,
pictures.
yeah,
of
the-
them.
Yeah, I was. Well, I remember because I don't know what made me think of it. I videoed it when I woke up that morning. I did a little piece of camera as to say, oh, it's I don't know 5 in the morning or wherever it
Ye-
was, and it was freezing cold that night. That
Yeah.
first night was I think it must have dropped to about 2 degrees or something like that. And I got up when it was dark, and there was another man, an older couple who had come up to the same point we were, and he was taking photographs of these mountains, and so I set up as well, and there were just these peaks, big rows of peaks in the distance, and they were probably like maybe 5,000-6,000 meters high. And just as the sun was coming up, it was just touching the tips. And yeah, I was in my element. I could have sat there all day, really.
I think we didn't realise how high we were, I think. Until
Yeah.
we saw that in the morning and
Yeah.
realised that we're actually, like, we're very high up. Yeah, I think that was the first time I realised that how much of an achievement this was just to get up to this high.
Yeah, and
point.
I think that's what everyone felt as well. When we woke up in the morning and we saw where we were like, okay, yes, one more day and just go crack on with it
Yeah,
again.
so then we set
Yeah.
off for the second day, and I think that was the longest
Second
day
day.
was
We
the
went
longest,
through
yeah.
town a bit, which was cool. We went through a bit of forest. It was a bit like bumpy, I suppose, along the way.
Yeah.
And then we got to the stairs like you were talking about, which I think by the end of that we were tired, but the stairs just motivated us to get to the top. 'Cause we had, like,
Do you
a
remember what we
destination.
got when we finished the stairs?
I do remember. I remember we got that popcorn.
That
tray of
popcorn, oh, that was
do
the best
remember
part.
that, yeah.
That was amazing.
I do remember interviewing Fahad the night before that when we did the bit to camera, and we said, "Oh, how was the first day? And what do you think about the second day?" And you said, "Oh, we've got 1,000 steps," and it was. And I can never remember how many stairs it was until I remember that clip of you saying that on the video, and it was like we'd been walking all day. And we'd done some really steep climbs.
Yeah.
And do you remember the place we had lunch? It was
Oh,
almost
that
like a
was
amazing.
farmhouse.
Yeah.
And there was eagles flying
I remember
around.
the
and-
helicopter as well that was below us.
Yes.
That was amazing.
And I remember speaking to the guy that worked then, how he was telling me about his daughter,
Yeah.
how she has to walk like 5,000 steps or somewhere just to get to school every day.
Yeah.
So it is quite far.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it. But yeah, so we got to that camp on the second day, and there was a party going on.
We were all really exhausted, and all we wanted to do was lay down and go to sleep.
So
and
we
then
had
there
to
was
wait about half an hour probably for them to clear off and for it to be cleaned, and then we got the tents up and we just chilled, really, made our food, and because by the time we made our food it was getting dark anyway.
Yeah.
We played a bit of Icelandic. Was it Icelandic?
Did we play it that night?
We
I
did,
can't
yeah,
remember.
I think.
Oh,
Well, I think
right.
we did.
Yeah, I
We
think
went
that
to
was the night I
cabin
was knocked
thing.
out.
Yeah, I think you were.
Yeah.
I think you were done that night, but
Yeah.
I think that we were in the cabin thingy because you got to the
Oh
dinner
yeah,
floor.
yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, yeah, we did play a little bit in there.
And then it was the final day. I suppose in the morning we woke up, I think ready to get it done, and that day was the quickest. I think, or it felt the quickest, like in our heads. And that's where we went through all the towns, villages, and it was like we met a lot of people.
I think the last day was probably the best one for everyone, just because we knew that, okay, not long left, just last day and just get through it. And I think that's why we all pretty much did it quite fast, to be honest.
We had to cross those bridges.
Oh, I remember those.
Oh, the bridges
You
were
really
terrifying.
liked those, didn't you?
They were
Like there's a
terrifying.
shot in the video. You can see your
Yeah.
facial expression as you went over those.
I think, I was just terrified of heights, and I think there was that one path where we had to literally walk on a straight line,
I
and
remember
it was
that bridge.
there was
over
nothing on
a-
either
it
side
was
as
like-
well.
Yeah.
It was over a ravine, pretty much.
Yeah.
If you fell, you wouldn't have made it.
Yeah,
Oh,
we're not talking about like solid
Yeah.
concrete bridges.
Yeah.
We're talking about cabled
Rickety,
bridges
yeah.
that swing in the wind and as you walk over them.
And I think the worst part was when we got towards the end and we were like, let's take a picture. And I was just like, no, just get me off this bridge.
Yeah, I do
But
remember
yeah,
that. Yeah,
that
I
was
stopped
terrible.
everyone there.
Then finally, obviously, walking through that arch at the end, that finish line.
That was
a
what
really
was
nice
that-
moment.
What was that feeling like? I don't know.
It was just such a relief.
It was, I think, one of the best feelings I've felt in my life for a long time. What about you? I don't know. What about?
I was actually a little bit sad that it was over. I enjoyed the whole experience, and I think I'd quite happily do that for days. I think the previous time I was in Nepal, we did a trip, and it was supposed to be. I think it was supposed to be a 5-day trek, but it was going up a mountain. It was called the Madhi Himal trek. And yeah, it was supposed to be 5 days, and I made the mistake of going with 3 PE teachers who obviously are a lot fitter than I was, and they were actually storming up the mountains. And we did it in 3 days because you're supposed to stop like halfway, and then you rest at a place, and then you go on to the next one. And we just carried on. We said, well, we'll do. So we ended up doing 2 days worth of trekking every day, and yeah, I remember doing that and having those same kind of like memories and feelings when we were doing this trek, and I was just like, I just wanted to carry on. I know you lot were knackered and just wanted to get back to
I
a
think,
hotel.
yeah, looking back on it, it was one of those things that went in slow motion almost when you were doing it because it was just so tiring, so like hard to do.
But I think the more I think about it, it's like if I had the opportunity to do it again, I would do it.
Yeah,
I'd do it without even thinking. I would just go on the trip again.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. Like, you were lucky because you did have the opportunity to do that. When I was at school, I did not have the opportunity to do that, and so to have that experience at your age, you now have, however many years ahead of you to do this over and over again and go to new places where, I didn't really start travelling until I was in my early 20s. And I never really saw much of the world until I could start going by myself. But I think you've had this really great introduction to what travel can do for you and how enriching it can be as a person. Because I always think that, yes, I've been to university and schools and all the rest of it, but I still think the most valuable education I've ever had is from travelling, and I wouldn't
seeing the
take that away
different
from
cultures and stuff like that, and you learn so much more.
Yeah, and you not just learn about other people and other cultures, you learn about yourself. And like I do remember actually you saying at some point, saying, oh, I didn't know if I could do this or not. And
I think it was very much that was my feeling the whole way through. Like, I didn't do any training for this. Like, we were told to make sure we do a bit of walking before this. I didn't do any of that, but I felt like the thing that pulled me through in the end was just my willpower and just the determination to get to that finish line, and I wasn't going to give up halfway through.
Yeah.
So.
And I think there's so much more that we got out of this. For example, me and you joined football specifically for the Duke of Edinburgh, but we're still there now.
Yeah.
So it's another thing we've got into, and that's just come from the Duke of Edinburgh experience. So there's all these other things that have come from that one thing that we've actually liked.
I suppose if we had to, we'll just go around. If you give one tip to anyone, obviously doing the expedition or just doing DofE in general in Like, what would you say? Like, Amaan, do you
Me,
wanna start?
I'd say stay motivated and just make sure you have a good team around you.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what helped me the most. Like, just as long as each one has that, like, if you have everyone's back, you'll get through it no matter what comes your way.
So, do you have any?
Yeah, it's difficult. I'd say you just have to go for these things. If you get the opportunity to go somewhere or to do a trip, just do it. You can live to regret things. That's fine,
Exactly,
but
yeah.
it's better to say you've done something and it wasn't quite what you wanted, rather than not do something and always wonder what if. I wonder what my life would be like if I had have done that, or if I had gone there. So it's better to go and do it and then think, all right, maybe that wasn't great, but at least you've got that experience, rather than just sit home and watch Netflix and think, oh yeah, I could have done that.
I suppose, yeah. I mean, my tip would be, like, if you're doing expeditions in a place like Nepal, make sure to just take a minute just to look around where you are, and just remember how fortunate you are. Because even though you might be thinking it's quite tough when you're doing it, you have to remember that you're in this like luxury position where you can do it, where a lot of like people who in the world can't do this. So
not only that, when you look around you in Nepal as well, you look at their lives and you just think about how grateful you are for yours. Like when we came back, especially when we came back to Dubai, I just thought about it and I was just like, we've gone there, we've lived like them for like 3 days, and we were like, oh, but it's so tough, but they do this every day.
Well, to be fair, I mean, the first night and the last night you stayed in hotels.
Exactly.
And it wasn't even that bad. But I mean, do you remember when we got to that point? I think it was on the second day where we walked past the school and all the kids were out playing in the playground.
Yeah.
And you think, those kids they're just kicking a tatty ball around in the dust and whatever.
But that's that's their fun. They enjoy that so much, and you can't take that away from them. So.
And that's the other thing that amazes me about Nepal and other places like that, is that whenever you see people, they've got big smiles on their faces. They might not have anything. Kids here moan because they haven't got the latest iPhone or whatever. Kids over there, they don't care. They just, as long as they can run around and kick a football, or they've got a pencil to write with or something like that, they're happy.
Exactly.
And that always puts stuff into perspective, I think, for me.
So I think that's a good point to end it at. I think we've had a good discussion. I think we could talk for ages really about it.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, I suppose if anyone wants to know more, they could always watch the video, which is on the school YouTube.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Oh yeah, that was
We'll link
video.
that in the description of this video, so you can go and check that out, see us. We do a few interviews with Sir. Give us your report on how it was. So yeah, and I would say to anyone obviously thinking about doing DofE, 100% do it.
Yeah.
It's even though it seems like a bit of work, you have to do the hours.
It's something you won't regret doing.
Exactly. And I think it'll be worth it in the end. It'll look really good on your uni applications, and just it'll make you a better person, I think, in general.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You only live once.
Exactly. You only live once. I suppose, thank you very much, sir, for coming on and just talking about this. And we'll see you next episode.
Yeah, see ya.
Bye.
Yeah.